So hi, everyone. My name is JJ Asghar. I'm a developer advocate for IBM. I don't know what that means either anymore. I really do have the email address of awesome@ibm.com, so you're more than welcome to reach out to me if you have any questions after the fact. And I realize this is one of the last talks of the conference, and everyone's probably really tired. So let's have a little bit of fun over the next 45 minutes, 50 minutes, and if you're lucky, we can maybe even get out of here early. First question I have. Actually, let me start over. I also do a lot of streaming and YouTube videos and whatnot. So I like interaction with the audience, right? I like to be able to let people ask questions. So if you have any thoughts or curious, raise your hand, or for that matter, yell at me, and we'll have a discourse, right? Okay. So whose first AI talk today is right now? Does that make sense? I'm a professional speaker. You got one? Not, yeah.
It's not true for me.
Yeah, okay. All right. Yeah, I figure everyone's going to be here. Everyone's probably been watching a couple of AI talks and or in this space. So I'm going to shoot through a lot of different stuff, and I want to show some code and do some fun stuff local on my laptop. So I'm going to be doing everything I talk and show here today is open source and free and backed by IBM. So you can absolutely run this on your laptop and never have to pay the dimes for any of this stuff. Unfortunately, I am being recorded, so I can't be as honest as I normally am. But if you catch me before I have to run home and take care of my daughter, I can call out the GPT chats and the books that are of face, and there are different systems out there. And hopefully some of you will laugh at some of my jokes. We'll see. But first, I've got to prove to my boss that I'm actually here. I know we're at a security conference. All my QR codes go to links on the website that hit a counter. This one right here goes to ibm.com/granite. That's all it does, and it hits a little counter on there to prove to my boss that you are actually in this room watching me do this talk. It allows me to go to other places to say that I'm actually doing my job. So thank you so much for doing that, and you've just convinced my boss to get me to go places. And you might want to keep your phone out too. I have some other URLs that'll pop up, but I do at the very end of this presentation have a QR code that goes to the presentation because it's all just Reveal.js, and it's just a website. Thumbs up, we good? Awesome, okay, cool. So out of all this stuff, right, we've probably talked about the GPT that is chat, and I can't say Gemini backward. Emini? No. Eminic. I didn't call it out loud. I swear I didn't. But the challenge is like, what is an open source model? And that is where we start. And the problem is, there's no source code for models, if you didn't know this. When you go and get a model, there is the data set, there are weights, but that's not like what we used to do with GitHub, right? If you go to GitHub, you can pull down some Python app that you can see the code, or for that matter, a Go application. And you actually see what's inside of it. There's not really anything with AI models. They're all binaries because they're all compiled. And you can't break them open, right? So when you use the term open source, it's really more of a misnomer, which is really frustrating. So what we've done is we've come along with this, okay, who knows what the CNCF is? CNCF? Do you know what the LF is? The Linux Foundation? Okay, so the CNCF is the one people who kind of drive the Kubernetes ecosystem, right? So they're the governing body of the Kubernetes ecosystem, and that's a subgroup of the Linux Foundation, the LF. Well, if you imagine how big Kubernetes is, right? We realized that we needed some level of third-party governance model around models. So what we've done is the LFAI, the Linux Foundation for Artificial Intelligence. By the way, you'll only ever hear me use the word intelligence in that one statement because AI is not intelligent. It is not. So you'll hear me call it AI, but you'll never hear me use that other word again. But as you see, the Linux Foundation for AI and Data Generative, we've created a third-party governance model, open governance, so we can start kind of verifying that isn't backed by a company on what an open model is. And right now, Granite obviously is really high up there because IBM was trying to push for this. But again, it is a third party, and we're bringing the other major players in the space into this to make sure it goes. By the way, if you go to that QR code, it is it open.ai. And if you start looking at all the different models out in the ecosystem, you'll start hopefully seeing this pop up more and more. If you know what KubeCon is, this is a huge portion of KubeCon now because most people are using AI as a whole. So I know that's a little bit of an aside, but it's one of those conversations you need to have because you need a third party that is non-partial to be able to determine what these things are. And of course, who doesn't love another committee? So everyone actually is debating what open source means. The problem is nobody can agree on it. So that's why the MOF, the Model Open Framework, exists. And it's kind of getting close to at least some level of understanding of what open source AI is. And at least we have some major players in the industry coming along with it. So it's important to recognize. But again, why am I going through all this when you're probably wondering about a talk about Granite specifically? It's because in order to get to Granite, you got to understand why it exists and how it exists. Admittedly, one of the challenges with our ecosystem is there's a company that ends with book and starts with face that might be taking a lot of data from humans right now and shoving it into their model to train it on. In my mind, this shows my gray beard here, that's what Napster used to do, if I wasn't correct, right? Well, IBM over here has decided to go on the path of what iTunes did, where we believe that the federal government, and probably not right now, but the federal government will eventually catch on to the copyright infringements that are happening. And we've gone down the path of making sure that all of our data is correctly attributed and can be repeatable. And if you ever get sued using one of our models, which I'll get deeper into in a moment, we will actually put our lawyers in court with you to defend it. What other company would do that? Who's seen *Halt and Catch Fire*? Anyone? What is one of the jokes about IBM? We're to be scared of our lawyers. We will defend this in court, which is really cool. But I digress. So I'm going to shoot through this real quick, but this is important to recognize. So who knows what fine-tuning is? Anyone? Does anyone not know what fine-tuning is? Oh, okay, cool. All right. So fine-tuning is the ability to add new knowledge to models. Now, this is a really weird statement to say, but bear with me. A model only knows what it knows, right? Like it can't. It's not a thing. It's not a being. So if something new happens, it doesn't know about it because it wasn't trained on that. So fine-tuning gives it the ability to start learning new things. You can fine-tune your own knowledge into a model. You can change the weights on certain things to have that kind of conversation. And that's what InstructLab does. InstructLab is an open source pipeline, an opinionated way of doing it that was created by IBM Research and eventually given to Red Hat. And they took it to kind of a different direction, but that's beside the point. And the idea is it's an opinionated workflow to get you to be able to fine tune. So, as I say right there. So the idea is, if you've ever played with like Unsloth or any of those other ones, there's a bunch of different ecosystems in this space, or a bunch of different tools in this space, and you can spend more time trying to pick the tool to figure out how to get this done, instead of you just taking the thing whole hog off the shelf and be able to actually fine-tune you need. One of the biggest challenges, though, with InstructLab, as we learned, is that, unfortunately, the dream that we had was, remember back in the days of Wikipedia when it first started, everyone kind of flocked to Wikipedia to like add the new knowledge to Wikipedia, so it was the biggest encyclopedia out there. We had the same idea with InstructLab, where we were actually going to create the Granite model and train it and fine-tune it with new knowledge of things happening, and then create a open source taxonomy to be able to give out the model that is always is open source, and you can actually see how the data sets are done. It was a wonderful, great, utopic idea. Unfortunately, it requires at least an H100 or an H200 now. If that means nothing to you, I just said I needed at least a $70,000 GPU to actually get this thing to work.
I was wondering about that.
Yeah, it's kind of hard to do that when you're an open source company. And also, if you didn't know, nerds don't like doing stuff for free anymore. So to bootstrap this thing to create an actual taxonomy, we would need academics and nerds to add to this. And when they have no incentive, it's kind of hard to get off the ground. So this was a great idea, but I will say, if you work for an enterprise, i.e. IBM, you can, and you have the access to A100s, H100s, or H200s, you can actually take the InstructLab workflow and run it inside your own data center or inside your own firewall, and be able to fine-tune models on your own taxonomy, which is pretty dang cool. So one of the best parts about it is that it has something called the Q&As. So if you take a look here, who knows what Mudang was or is? No? Mudang is the little pygmy. And why is that not coming up? Maybe? Hello. Yeah, it's a hippo, exactly, thank you. That is supposed to go to a URL inside of GitHub, but it's not. So what the idea was is that you have a Q&As where it's very simple questions and answers from that you basically retrain off of a markdown document, which again, conference Wi-Fi is always a problem. That's supposed to be a markdown document. But the idea is you create basically synthetic data generation where it reads the markdown file and then looks at the questions and answers and builds a bunch of questions and answers off of it to retrain it on new stuff. So take that, extrapolate that a little farther. That means if you have some company knowledge, i.e. HR, information, whatever, you can write some very easy English-like questions and answers and then take out a bunch of markdown documents and be able to train that model on that. Now, you're probably wondering, why would you want to do this? And that is the next slide. The difference between RAG and fine-tuning. Peter, just a few moments ago, had a really good technical description of what a RAG was, but I like to take it a little bit higher level, so bear with me for 2 seconds. So imagine your AI is a librarian. First of all, did you know librarians are actually sometimes doctorates in finding stuff? Like they are absolutely one of the best people on the planet. They are professional researchers. Take full advantages of them. Now, take a moment and imagine your AI as a librarian, okay? A RAG is you going to your librarian and it is the library. So that librarian, well, you can walk up to the librarian and say, I need to get some knowledge about George Washington, right? And they probably know that, George Washington grew up on Mount Vernon and was the first or the highest general in the US military of all time, right? But they also probably know about books inside the library about George Washington. Fine-tuning is the idea of putting a new bit of knowledge inside their brain, right? So basically the idea is the AI model knows where to find a book on George Washington, but also knows some certain amount of facts. Now, did you know George Washington was terribly addicted to ice cream? I'm dead serious. It is unbelievable. And at the time, ice cream was insanely hard to make because you need to cool it, right? He had a bunch of, caves with really cold areas that he would have sit inside of it. It's really brilliant when you go through it. Now, it's very unlikely that librarian knew that. So if you had to send him back to school to get that new knowledge, that's fine-tuning, adding a little bit more knowledge to it. Now, what do you think is more expensive? Adding a book to a library, or sending a librarian who's probably a doctorate back to school? Which is more?
Back to school.
Yes, exactly. It costs a lot of money to fine-tune because you've got to do it. But
You have to retrain the model.
exactly, you have to retrain the model. But there's a cutoff point. When you start looking at it from an enterprise scale, that communication of sending the librarian to the library to get the book to come back, when you start talking about tens of thousands, hundreds of thousands of requests, and all that latency and how long it takes to get that information, compared to spending that $70,000 on the GPU to train that information into the model, you start thinking about that at economies of scale. You start really wondering, hold on, maybe I should be looking into fine-tuning this model because now it is this thing. Does it make sense?
Yes.
You everyone with me here? Now on my laptop, it's a different story, but when you start thinking about running an open source model inside your data center, you have to really start chewing on this. Okay, so let's talk about agents and agentic workflows. We all know what agents are, right? Yes, it's just a Python script.
What?
But no, let's talk about some of the frameworks, because honestly, the challenge with agents right now is that it has exploded. It's done some really great things, but there are multiple different ways of engaging with them. And also, as you start building up over time, you'll quickly realize that having a bunch of Python scripts everywhere and no framework, your life basically goes crazy. So what is an agent? It is just basically the ability to either talk to an API or talk to a website and then give more context to the LLM when you send out to the prompt to be able to get the information that you're looking for. There's a couple major frameworks out there. There's the B framework, which is has been what's the word I'm looking for? Donated to the LFAI. It was an IBM project, but we have actually donated it to it, so it is a third party now. Crew AI is kind of become the de facto standard, but let me put it this way. Crew AI is a venture capital funded 6-person company. B framework is an open source, third party, open governance with a multinational corporation behind it. If you're going to build a bunch of agents, do you want to use the VC funded one? Do you want to use the one that a massive corporation is behind? It's up to you. But I will say that this video right here, and let's see if this will actually work. This work? There we go. Oh, this actually came up. Awesome. This video right here, which by the way, you'll have the link at the bottom. Don't look at my other videos. That's embarrassing. But this is 2 hours long. I learned more about agents through this guy right here than anything else. He walked you through building it from the ground up. It's all with Python. So if you've never touched Python before, I'm sorry. You probably have a lot to learn because that's all AI work now is Python. But it's unbelievable. This video is so good. All right. And of course, I have to talk about AutoGen because AutoGen was the first one out there. It's done by Microsoft. Nobody cares.
There's other ones, but
Yeah, and these are the three that I chose to pick. Anyway. Okay, so let's go back into the kind of open source idea here. So if you can't use the one that starts with GPT chat or all the different ones out there, which model could you actually do this with? Now, who does not know what Hugging Face is? Everyone knows what GitHub is? Who does not know what GitHub is? Okay, good. Hugging Face is basically the GitHub for models and AI. So if you hear, back to the original statements of all these binaries, they're all usually hosted on something called Hugging Face. Now, if you go to Hugging Face right now, on March 10th of 2025, and you look up all the open source models you can get, that's 1.4 million. Seems like a lot. You want to see how much it is now?
oh, I don't remember. It's a lot.
Yeah, it's not. Oh, here we go. Here's the actual. This actually finally came up. So that's the Q&As I was talking about earlier. So if I go to Hugging Face and I click on models, 2.1 million. 2.1 million models, open source models. Where do I start? Yeah, exactly. That is an insane amount of models there. By the way, if you didn't know, you have no way of knowing the pedigree of these models either. So when somebody could have fine-tuned something on this and released it, you have no way of knowing where it came from. So it could tell you to kill all humans if you ask it the wrong question. And do you really want to build your business on that? I don't think so. Yeah, I don't think so. That doesn't seem like a good idea. So again, that's really scary when you start thinking about it. So that's the reason why that brings us to Granite, right? Which is the open source model that I wanted to talk about. And it's supported by IBM, et cetera, as I said at the very beginning of the talk. And it can run on your laptops really easily. It's designed to be, I hate this term so much, micro LLM. Thank you for laughing. If you didn't get it, it's micro large language model. It's a terrible name, terrible name. But that's what it is. It's designed to be a small model that sits on your laptop or on the edge. And we've just released 4.0. I haven't updated these slides because I'm lazy. But the best part about Granite 4.0, actually, the Granite 4.0 Nano can run on a Raspberry Pi. So what does that mean? That means you can have an LLM that you can make some relatively impressive decisions with statuses on it that if you, for instance, run a wind turbine in the middle of nowhere and you don't want to call back to GPT chat to make decisions on it, you could, in theory, run the Nano model on that wind turbine with very little overhead and very little power usage, and it can actually look at the sensor data, which is pretty dang cool when you start playing with it more.
It sounded pretty cool.
Yeah, it's great. I do actually have a Raspberry Pi 5 at home. They released this only a week and a half ago, 4.0, because we had something called Tech Exchange, where we released it there, which is basically the nerd version of Think. And I bought a Raspberry Pi immediately, and it's sitting on my porch at home because I have been at other conferences. But I will have actually a proof of this the next time I do this talk somewhere else.
Ah, so Mini Jarvis is waiting at home, huh?
That's exactly right, Mini Jarvis. So unlike our competitors too, if you notice there's a bunch of different Granite models here. These Granite models are all targeted at specific jobs. So instead of us boiling the ocean and having to spin up nuclear power plants now, we've decided to do one job and one job well. What is that old philosophy from Unix? Do one job and one job well, and that's exactly what we've done here. We have the Granite Vision model, which is very good at looking at charts and graphs and pulling information from them. The Granite Guardian model looks for HAP in communications. That's hate, abuse, profanity, I believe, and make sure that it can edit the stuff that you probably don't want in the business context. Our Granite embedding model ties really great with something called Dockling that exists, which does some really good conversion from different formats to be able to get into RAGs. And then time series is actually probably our neatest one. We're all engineers here, yes? Anyone not an engineer? Not one, okay, that's fine. We all have time series data, right? Time series will actually basically do what scikit-learn and things like that for projections of time series as a model, which is one of my demos here in a minute. And then Granite-Code, we don't talk about anymore.
Why?
Well, it turns out we've actually just released a new project called Project Bob that is the next generation of Granite-Code. And yeah, it's called Bob. It's designed for the enterprise. It's very focused on Java and COBOL, where if you didn't know, COBOL still runs the planet. And if you ever had to deal with COBOL, you'll quickly realize that GPT chat, I can't call it out loud, and the pilot that is don't know those languages. So we basically decided to make our own. Okay, so out of all this, right, one of the biggest challenges I've had when I've presented this conversation to people is that they're like, JJ, this AI stuff's cool, but what do you do with it, right? How many of your bosses say, we need AI right now, right? And they're just like, okay, cool, I got this shiny thing, what do I do with it? And you're like, I don't know, right? So let's go with some use cases that are relatively unique that I've thought of that kind of hopefully will start the creative juices flowing. So one of my first ones that I did, so I'm also an organizer for events. DevOps Days Austin is I own the CFP process there. I've done DevOps Days Dallas and Houston also. So what I ended up doing is I run the CFP, so I get a bunch of abstracts. And one of the challenges with the abstracts is that you start finding sales pitches very regularly. So I get about 200 to 300 abstracts coming in for DevOps Days Austin. and I don't want to read all those. So what I end up doing is I actually built the AI abstract classifier I knew which were sales pitches inside of the abstracts coming in. And I ran Granite against them all to give me a percentage of what it thinks is a sales pitch. Because how much do you hate coming to a conference and having someone stand up here and talk about their product the whole time that they're up here? Oh, okay. Anyway. But it actually really did really well. What it ended up doing is it found a lot of the sales pitches that we knew as other DevOps days were out there, because we all talked to one another. We recognized that, for instance, MongoDB was really bad about putting their abstract in that was an obvious MongoDB sales pitch. So it really did highlight those things, which was really nice. It saved us hours and hours of work because it just gave me at least a percentage that I could deprioritize. I never said, tell me if it is or not. It gave me a grayscale. So if it's like 95% of sales pitch, then I can look at the ones that are 0 before, and then if I don't find any others, I can go back to the 95 one. It gives me the ability to kind of work that way. Another unique one is I actually have 2 medical schools now that leverage Granite on their local laptops to work on motivational interviewing. Who has a doctor that has the best bedside manner on the planet? That you just want to, you're just lying.
He was previously an IT professional.
Okay, all right. Well, you were very lucky. You were very lucky.
I did when I was in Vegas, but I'm out here now.
Yeah. The joke is that nobody does, right? And it's fine. It's fine. What I ended up doing, it turns out, if you didn't know, going through med school, they only have one class their whole medical school career where they actually learn to interact in a professional way with patients to ask them questions, to figure out what is actually going on with them. And what they normally do is they hire actors to come in with a whole range of issues that they have a book of to be like, you have now energy drink addiction, or you can't breathe because you smoke too much, right? And they get the actors to do it. It's only one class, their whole medical school career. So what I did is I took this process and I actually just did some prompt engineering and ran it on my local laptop. And granted, it's text and it's open source software, so it's not production by any standard. But I was able to get the students to be actually able to use it so they can interact with them and ask the right questions out of it. And it turns out this motivational interviewing process has an actual rubric that says that you should be able to ask this question a little bit more open, et cetera, et cetera. So I got the model to be trained on that rubric also, so they could take that chat, send it back to the model, and as a tutor, come back and tell it, hey, you should be doing X, Y, and Z. Which is pretty dang cool, right? And this was me literally just fucking around with Django for an afternoon. So imagine what you could do from that. And that's all just prompt engineering. The next one is, so that's me right there at a STEM night at school here in Austin. That's my daughter in the corner. She's very angry because I made her come to this thing. But who here has kids around 10 or under 10 years old? Anyone? Okay. So I have two girls, and when my youngest one was going to bed, I have to tell stories about princesses and things like that, and it got kind of, frankly, redundant. It's kind of annoying. So what I ended up doing is their dad was actually right here. These are 2 of their kids, and the dad was right here. Is that I actually used the Granite model to write out a story about something that kid was interested in. And because we're here in Texas, in Austin, actually this was in Cedar Park, this kid loves college football. It's just so typical Texan. So what I ended up doing was like, hey, write me a bedtime story about a college football team. And it just basically outputted a great little story about a college football team. And I took that same story and pushed it into another vision model, and we got a little picture of that. These kids were like, oh, that's kind of cool. This dad right here, standing right off screen, got super excited because that means he can now write a different story every single night and not have to tell that same thing over and over and over again. And that's so empowering to parents because now you get to tell a story. And The kid gets to see an actual picture. Granted, it's a very strange one, but they get to actually see a picture of what's actually they told the story of, which is unbelievably powerful.
The clown baseball player.
Yeah, it's very. I think they were called the Rams. I think that's supposed to be Rams. I don't know. Whatever. All right. So I have this wonderful luxury of being a type 1 diabetic. So believe it or not, I've used the time series model to project my insulin usage and pump supply usage. So I can actually take my data from my sensors and now tell me how many infusion sets I need to take when I travel, how much insulin I need to take, and actually project it. I've actually gotten really far with this, so if we have time, I can actually show it to you live if you want to see it. On that same token, this is my gray beard showing. Who knows what Nagios is? Yes, yep. So I was at Nagios WorldCon 3 weeks ago, where I actually did the exact same thing with Nagios logs, which I can show you too, where it can project usage of a hard drive space or load average on a machine. So you can, in theory, use the time series model to project if you need to buy new hard drives for your servers or whatever like that, which is unbelievably powerful too. And again, all on my laptop in front of my boss, which is pretty cool. Okay, so you want to see the insulin one or anything like that, or no? Yeah? Okay.
What are the options here? See it, or what else you got?
Let's see. Let's find out. All right. So, first thing first. So, if I put a Jupyter Notebook in front of everyone, does anyone not know what a Jupyter Notebook is? Everyone? Okay. Jupyter Notebook is basically an interface to a way to do data science and write Python to be able to make graphs and stuff, right? It's a really easy way of doing it, and it's repeatable, right? Which is one of the most important parts. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to just run this this whole Jupyter Notebook. By the way, all this stuff is open source and free. You can take all my code and do it. While this is running, I'll show it to you in just a second. So if I come over here and run all these cells, nothing up my sleeve. I'm setting it all up, as you can see right here. It's actually doing the work. And if I come over here, Granite. Oh, come on, really? Granite time. There we go. Really? Okay, good. So this right here is the actual CSV of the data that we're going to be using. As you can see, it's a nightmare. And it is frustrating. And that is the problem with proprietary systems, is that they try to make it very difficult to use. So, but this is actually all my data for a few months back in April for what my insulin intake was. And as you'll see here in a moment, right here, this is doing all the Python-y stuff to make sure everything's already there. Bear with me.
Library language.
Yeah, it's all the different libraries and whatnot.
Vulnerabilities, loading, backdoors.
Did you have to input the data yourself, or?
I will show you in just a moment. So as you see right here, the most important part of all of this right here is these lines right there. It creates the time series forecasting pipeline. So if you don't know, with Python, everything's an object, right? So when you tell, hey Python, or hey time series, this TF public notebooks, create this object that we can actually shove the stuff into. So if you were doing scikit-learn, you know that 70-30 thing where you have to do a certain amount of testing and then you do the validation of the testing, and then you actually push all the 70 data through. The best part about the time series model is you don't need to do that. You can just create the pipeline and just shove the data into it. Right now, I only have one vector, right, which is just the time and then my blood sugar. But if you add more variables to it, more columns, if you will, to the data frame, you can get even more interesting data off of it too. I should mention also that this is only about 250 megs of a model, so it can run pretty much on any laptop in front of you, which is pretty cool. Okay. Well, yeah, that's another important thing, is that I'm doing this all through CPU. I'm not doing it through the GPU at all. And as you'll see, minus the pulling down the Wi-Fi here, everything was already done on the machine since my clicking that stuff. So if you see here, here's all the Python-y stuff. And this is it telling it, to answer your question, this is loading it in right here. Unfortunately, that was the biggest challenge right there, was to figure out where the actual useful information was. Back to the proprietary sucks, makes things difficult. But we ended up finding it, which is nice. And as you can see here, here's my blood sugar between these lines. And this is every 5 minutes, right? So again, time series data, right? Like it tells all these different little bits and pieces. And then this is right here, my basal rate throughout the day. So I used 85 units. I used 79 units. And then I'm going to have to make this a little smaller, sorry, to show the graphs. Oops. So this right here is my actual blood sugar over this month. If you want to know, this is called a pizza right there, if you didn't want to know. So just make sure you know that one. But as you can see, it's relative, like you can see there's already pretty much a trend line, right? Which is good. But again, art of the possible. Imagine all the different other data you have out there to be able to match this against. I'll go ahead and do the next bit here. And this is actually the first prediction right there, right? So as you can see, for these 3 days, it predicted that I was going to be pretty much flat, which is exactly, if you look at my numbers, that's true, right? Because it's pretty much straight line, which is really, really cool. And that's exactly what you want to be as a diabetic. You want to be between 80 and 120 is the numbers. And this is put it all as, all right, 125, fine. I'm a little high, but the idea is that allows me to be relatively healthy. And that's with the precision of every 5 minutes. But if you go to the next time over the data for daily, which is, as you see here, this is the daily one, it started projecting how much insulin I was going to, oh, that's not the one I want to show. It's this one. This is the one I should show. This is how much insulin I was using daily through 3 months, right? Of all the different amounts of total insulin I was using for my basal, which is the background insulin that you put in, not the bolus, which is attached to the carbs you're eating at the time. And it's really important to recognize this one. This was projecting it down to about 30 odd units in June from 3 months. That's awesome. That's also because I was on Ozempic, and that's one hell of a drug and does amazing things. But I showed this to my doctor in my other dates, and that was unbelievably powerful because now I have computers that are saying that, no, you're trending down. That also means I'm losing weight. It means I'm being more healthy, which is great. So, and this was all done literally a few moments ago as I started clicking on these buttons, which I thought was kind of cool. Questions? Thoughts? Yes?
So have you used Granite to create a chatbot?
Yes.
How much did you
So one of the cool parts about let me take a step back. So when you leverage Granite to be a chatbot, you need to give it certain parameters to be able to do certain things. Leveraging the conversation between fine-tuning new knowledge inside of it and using a RAG, it depends on how often you want to interface with it, and then also depends on which model you want to use. It really depends on the actual specific job you want out of the model. Like, the biggest challenge with leveraging AI as a whole is that it's a great idea, but if you don't have a good use case for it, then it just becomes kind of floundering and just feels like a weird step in the workflow that you're looking for. So you need like, I have this problem, and I need to make an A, B, C decision. I know I can make A and B be very specific for these rules, and C is my catch-all. If you have a human that has to figure out A, B, and C, you can prompt engineer the model, like in Granite, to be able to run on your laptop to decide if it should be A, B, or C, and then you have a human that checks every once in a while. Does that make sense?
It does.
Yeah, it's again, you got to find the right use case for it. Back to the little statement of use the right tool for the right job, right? You're not going to use a hammer when you need a screwdriver. I mean, you can. It's a terrible idea. And you're not going to use a screwdriver when you need a hammer, right? I mean, you could. You're going to hit the nail in with a hammer or with a screwdriver. You just look like an idiot, but it can work. Yeah, please.
Was it right on the first try?
Yeah. Yes. Yeah. This is just me running the same data through it every single time. And Again, all my data is open source and free. You're more than welcome to play with all this stuff.
How do you know it's right? Do you have to you track, does that device have something else where you track?
Yes, yeah, I have, there's a whole...
Stare and compare, okay, this is coming out.
Exactly, and unfortunately this was done months ago, so that data's rolled off, but it did actually work, and I did show this to my endocrinologist, who's over here on MOPAC, if he's Texas Diabetes right there. He actually showed it to me, he's like, hey, that's pretty freaking cool, man. So, I was gonna show one other thing. But yeah, all this stuff is on my GitHub that you're more than welcome to steal. Yes, please.
Is there a limit to the fidelity you can have for the data sets?
Yes. So the amount of the more precision you put to it, as you saw from the daily check to the 5-minute check, we only got 3 days with 5 minutes. But with the daily, we got 3 months, right? So however close you do with precision depends on how much it can project confidently. So you've got to kind of balance it, right? Like with all new technology, you got to kind of balance that stuff. Did I answer your question? Awesome. Please.
You mentioned some subsets of the Granite model that you've already kind of pre-trained. Is there a list where they're all present I can review? Do you have an image recognition one? Do you have?
So most of our models are specifically designed for enterprise use cases. So for instance, like creating the videos or creating the pictures, we don't have those because most businesses don't need that. If you go to the ibm.com/Granite, you'll see all the different the names around it and what they're specifically designed to do to be able to build off of that. Or you almost did it perfectly for me. How do I play with it on my laptop right now? This actual workshop right here, if you take a picture of it, you can get this running in about 2 hours, or I would say no, it walks you through from the very beginning. I've written this myself, and it does it all through open source on your laptop. I strongly suggest using real internet access, not conference Wi-Fi, because you do have to pull down a few things here and there. But 2 frosty beverages worth of time, you probably have a fully working local AI model on your laptop that is supported by IBM. If you don't want to just do the inferencing thing and do all that, I also have the Granite workshop here, which if those Jupyter notebooks were any bit interesting to you and you found yourself more on the developer side and you want to bolt this onto the side of your workflow or your application, that's where the Granite workshop comes into play. So if you're a Python developer or want to leverage models in a way, that's a great one. And then finally, this is the actual QR code to this actual presentation with all those links. And hopefully everybody learned something. That's my goal. If you've learned something, I know I've done my job right. Thank you so much, everybody.
Still have some time.
Did anyone have any more questions? Yeah.
I'm obviously interested in how many tokens can it ingest in a prompt.
So the context window.
What is it trained on?
Yeah. So if you go to it's all published. All this, everything is published open source. So it's, by the way, Granite is all licensed Apache 2. So you can absolutely take this and run with it however you want. All the data sets are open source, so you can request from IBM to do it. And also the weights for the models.
Provide training data as well?
You can ask for it, but very few people actually realize that when you go through that process, it's terabytes worth of information. You would need massive GPUs to actually train it to become Granite. So we've never actually seen anyone go through it.
Then the question is, when we talk about retraining to add more to the mind of the librarian.
That's where the fine tuning comes into play, where you so if you imagine a Docker container, right? And you know how you put a new layer on top of the Docker container with a change? That's called the LoRa process, and that's what fine tuning is. It's just like yes, we are for InstructLab specifically. Very rarely do people actually ask me that specific question.
Sorry.
That's fine. That's fine. Any other questions?
The only limitation to this is memory, or not memory, but storage.
I would say I would say the main limitation is GPU processing. Like I said, conference Wi-Fi is terrible. If you look at, so here are all the different models here, as you can see. Oh, the geospatial one, NASA uses it for stuff. That we actually worked with NASA to build this, which is really nice. Don't forget, IBM sent people to the moon. It's a natural progression for us. Document conversion. Oh, they actually call it small language model now, then, not the, where is it? Well, anyway, this is that original link. This is the Granite, ibm.com/Granite, but the majority of the stuff is designed to be pushing LLMs to the edge, right? Like, we believe that you've already invested enough money and time in your laptop and power, right, in your laptop that already has this stuff. You should be able to get the same level of AI work that you want for your business instead of having to go back to Silicon Valley or Redmond and ask them to run it in their data centers to send that stuff back to you. Did that make sense? Without actually calling out the thing, because I know I'm recorded. Awesome. All right, well, again, thank y'all.